This is a call to order for the Spooner Area School District Board of Education Committee of the Whole, dated November 4th, 2015. Can we please have roll call?
Paul Gellner.
Here.
Brian Galverson.
Here.
John Hedlund.
Here.
Robert Holland.
Here.
Christina Martin.
Here.
Kyle Pierce.
Here. Thank you. Next, I'll seek a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well, I'd like to express my disapproval of the agenda because the notice only went out yesterday and we knew about it almost a week ago. That's minimal legal requirements. Doesn't have to be that way. There's a better form of governance than that. And the other thing is to the 5 o'clock start time to come back into open session when the whole purpose of the meeting is to have an open discussion with the community about the community's desires. But to start the meeting before the business day even ends kind of demonstrates to me that you don't really have an intent to be very transparent with the community. So I object on that basis. Thank you.
All right, I'm not sure I knew about this a week ago, but we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Next, I'll seek a motion to convene into closed session.
Make a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. A legal review regarding the member expansion and proposed apportionment plan.
I'll second that motion.
We need a roll call vote.
Paul Gellner.
Yes.
Brian Galverson.
Yes.
John Hedlund.
Yes.
Robert Holland.
Yes.
Christina Martin.
Yes.
Kyle Pierce.
Yes. We will reconvene into open session no earlier than 5 p.m. Session at 5:11 p.m. We're now at the discussion and action portion of the evening. I guess the first thing that I want to take care of is the board vacancy. And after we come to a consensus about what we're doing with that, then I'd like to recognize members of the audience to speak to the board expansion and the petition and apportionment plan. So, starting out, would any board members like to speak towards the board vacancy? You know, we've got a proposed time frame for how that's going to be filled. By statute, per board policy, it says that we shall fill the position. But with the upcoming election, the state statute, I believe, says that position, whoever fills that position, will be up for election at the April election. So, do any board members have any issue with the proposed time frame for filling that seat?
Right. Our discussion was that we're obliged by policy to fill the position. We think that the position should be filled, but the way the statutes are written and the time of the resignation, that means that this coming April, that seat will be up for elected position. So whoever gets appointed, and it is an appointment process right now, will be there for, 5 months or something, and then the position will be an elected position.
I do have some preliminary dates here. The application process will open on November 6th and close on November 25th, and this will be through a Google Docs application process. during the week of December 6th. The board is hoping to review the applications and hoping to announce the new candidate December 21st. The candidate will be sworn in January. That's our tentative timeline at this time.
Do you know how can members interested in filling out that application access it?
I believe Diana will be posting something on the website. And I guess we can talk with her further on how that will go out, but I'm sure there'll be notice on how to handle it, have that happen.
Do we need any more discussion about that?
Who's going to pick the candidate for the position, and can you explain to the community how that works?
Actually, as Christina just mentioned, the board will review the candidates and the applications during the week of December 6th. We may ask for interviews. Not obliged to, but we may ask for that. And then we will announce the board will announce the candidate that we choose.
That is to say, we, the board, will make that choice.
Okay, so the president doesn't get the choice, and it's a majority of the board. Is that the way I understand it?
Correct.
Correct. All right. Now that that's taken care of, I just want to invite anybody who's here from the community that wants to talk towards the petition, expanding the board, the plan for apportionment. If anybody has any comments about that. Mr. Lake, let's see if this microphone will work.
Hopefully we have access to some portable microphones so people could be heard.
Are you calling that?
Yeah.
So
we
there
can
wasn't a
take
sign-up
the-
sheet, so I'm just inviting in.
We can either take the mountain to Muhammad or Muhammad to the mountain. Vicki, did you have something you wanted to say?
Before we actually have comments to make, or myself have comments to make, actually I'm interested in what your comments are and why you're here as a committee of the whole to even discuss this issue at all.
My response to that is that my concept of the meeting tonight was to discuss this among the community members that are here and the board. So, you're just opening a discussion. We have our own thoughts on the matter, and I'm sure people in the audience do, but hopefully this will be a discussion.
Well, I guess my comment is, do you have issues with it? And you met with a lawyer in closed session here just for the last hour to completely, to discuss this. What is it that your thought process is? What are we waiting for? The posting should have been posted in the Advocate tomorrow in order to meet the deadline for the date that Mr. Helen had requested if we had it on the 19th. The 2-week posting would have been due tomorrow in the Advocate.
There are different... The answer to all of these questions is not all that clear to me. That is, as I read the state statutes. So these are things that don't seem to have any legal precedent. So we're into areas of uncharted legal decision-making process. And that's a little upsetting and, threatening for a board member such as myself. But I will say that, it is true that the petition was improperly provided at the annual meeting. That makes a lot of sense to me. If the petition did not accompany the request for an 11-member board, then it has no meaning. also think that, and I have the floor here, so I'll just ramble on a little bit. Okay, and you can sit down if you want, Vicki, because there may be more reason to get up. But I remember when we were working to pass a referendum to build a new school, we had multiple failed referenda, 8 of them maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. And prior to the referendum that eventually succeeded and allowed us to build this new school, we figured, that is, those people who were, and I was on the board at that time, the people who were working to get that referendum to pass, we needed at least 900 votes to get that referendum to pass. As it turned out, we got, I think, and don't quote me exactly on these numbers, they're ballpark numbers, but we got somewhat over 1,000. So we saw that 900 and we beat it. And the referendum passed, and we're sitting in the auditorium in the school that came about because of that. So the point I would make here is that the number 900 to 1,000 is, it seems to me, critical mass when it comes to what the public in this district really wants. Now, I understand that about 250 people voted in favor of expanding the board the other night. To me, that's not critical mass. That's a large number of people, and I pay attention to their voice, but it is nowhere near what is necessary to carry a referendum in this district. It's about a fourth of that. So I just bring that up. I think in comparison, it's worth thinking about. That's a relatively small number. I will also say about this apportionment plan, and perhaps I want to here only to express my own personal opinion about this apportionment plan. I looked up the word apportionment, and apportionment is a concept that divides up representatives of an electorate so that everybody gets more equal voice. It is used when districts combine. You know, Chautauqua joins Weyerhaeuser. Who's going to have what apportionment in terms of the voting? Nothing like that is going on here. So it seems to me that the apportionment plan that's been provided is paying only lip service to the concept. And it is, I think, makes a mockery of the concept. But this is my opinion, so I just share this with you. We don't have a combined school district here. We're the same people that we've been for the last several decades. So who are we kidding about apportionment? That the plan to me seemed to be foolish and rather shabby. So I'm going to quit talking now. I've got other things I want to say, but you know, this just opens up the discussion, and if you want to share your thoughts with us, that's what we'd like to do tonight.
Am I okay to talk?
Yeah, you're okay.
First of all, I believe the number that voted was 357. So to say 200 or...
Okay, we're debating between 25% and 30%.
But I would also submit to you that this auditorium holds 500 people. So clearly we're not going to get 1,000 people in here. And also I would suggest people going to vote takes, 10 minutes? Sitting through a 3-4 hour meeting. You know, I would say that was pretty fairly represented about where people stand. I really think that people in this community want the board to expand. If the apportionment plan is not a big deal to you, then why wasn't the first petition accepted? The second petition was turned in timely on October 20th. What is your stance on the second petition? What is the board's position on the second petition turned in on October 20th? Christina, Kyle?
I guess I'll voice my opinion is that it wasn't done properly. If it was noted properly 30 days prior to the annual meeting, then it would be proper. But it was not proper, and if we did something up here, it's something that's not legally documented, I think that we would be crucified just the same.
Kyle, so it's your intention that a special meeting of the electorate does not have the power to hold a petition? Or, I mean, the validity of the special meeting, you're saying, wasn't done correctly? I mean, we're past the annual meeting, I guess we have to set that to the side. So now we're talking about the special meeting of the electorate, which Mr. Forbes, I don't want to insult him again by saying Mr. WASB, indicated that it has all the powers of a regular annual meeting. So are you contending, Kyle, then that the second petition to hold a special meeting, you don't feel, or you've received legal counsel, that is not properly done?
This is just from my behalf speaking, that I don't feel that the petition that was filed prior to the annual meeting qualified.
Okay, I get that one. And actually, thank you very much for even speaking, and Paul Gellner as well. We really would love to hear your honest, true thoughts and have a dialogue. That's great. But actually, Kyle, what do you think about the special meeting? We've had to move past the annual meeting. And there are many things to be said probably about that, but I'm willing to put that in the past as, I mean, I don't hold that same opinion. But we're looking at this special meeting that does require proper posting. And Mr. Hedlund, Mr. Gellner, and Mr. Olin at the annual meeting, as we talked about this, all indicated that they were willing to listen to the will of the people and have this special meeting. If we got the petition in, we got the petition in on time. It had an apportionment plan. I can't disagree with Paul Gellner in that this apportionment plan is pretty much members at large, just like the current board is members at large. We have a 21 voting district. How do you equally divide up 21 voting districts to 11 positions, where you have the town of Scott, which has a huge tax base and very little parent representation, very little student population. The demographics of our district don't allow for dividing up townships. You have Serona and Wausau and the Serona, Long Lake, Wausau, those bordering districts that are just chopped up, and we may actually even only have, 30% of the actual township. So to put a plan forth that divides it up and says one from Trigo, one from the towns of Chicago and Gull Lake, that is very controversial based on population alone. The only big discrepancies that you see on a voting electorate is the city of Spooner, which typically, I'm going to remember, carries about 40% of the voting populace in any typical election. Trigo comes in second. So to say that one is delegated to the city of Spooner is not an unreasonable measure. And thinking back, and my memory is not like it used to be, but I don't remember in the last 25 years that I worked for the school that we didn't have someone from the city of Spooner, just because we did have someone from the city of Spooner. And we sometimes had more than one. So I think the member at large, with one being in the city of Spooner, is an accurate representation of what's been happening since I've been an adult in the Spooner School District and worked with the Board of Education.
Vicki, can I comment?
Sure.
Sure. I guess when you talk about this, the second petition and the apportionment plan, I guess myself, as I look back, I look at all the pieces and I need to look at the whole picture and how all the pieces fit together as I look back at them. I can't go from one and then just forget about that one and then go to the next. And that's part of our job, or part of my job, I think, is to look at the whole picture and how all the pieces fit together. So I just can't go from one to the next. I need to look at the whole picture.
So looking at the whole picture, then, the community concerns that have been brought before the board for the last year and a half, that the community, many in the community feel, have not been addressed. Let's go back and look then over the last year and a half, not just to the last annual meeting when that petition was filed and maybe improperly filed, or whether the district knew about it in a timely fashion to let people know so it could get filed correctly in a timely fashion.
Are you talking about the decision to expand or the apportionment plan?
I'm talking about the decision to expand in the apportionment plan. And if we're talking about what has led up to that and really looking at all of the issues, that goes back much farther to community concerns being brought forward to you and this community group, which I'm not a part of, but I understand they're wanting expansion of the board for better representation and better addressing the issues that have been brought before the board. There has been a lot and a timely, things that haven't happened in a timely fashion that, to be honest, the board has been lax in addressing and addressing to the community. So to get to this point, yes, apparently it may have been misfiled before the annual meeting, but the question was never answered at the annual meeting as to whether the district, not the board, but the district knew that it wasn't going to be able to go forward. I think the biggest question now for the board is, have you gotten legal advice that basically you're going to make the decision not to allow this special meeting to occur, even though the public at the annual meeting was led to believe that this meeting would happen if they were able to submit enough signatures and have their ducks in a row for what would be considered for this special meeting coming up.
Let me respond to a couple of those issues. The district did not know that the filing of the petition was improper. Okay, that kind of conspiracy, disinformation theory ought to be stopped in its tracks. We didn't know. You didn't know. Nobody knew. Okay, so I'm just telling you the facts. Here's the fact. That's it. So you can put that one to bed. Okay, we don't have to talk about that anymore. Now, this issue about, what led up to this, there are 400, roughly, school boards in this state. Perhaps 401. The most school board members that exist on a board in this state is 9, except for one district which has 11, which occurred because of a consolidation. And they are trying to get back down to 9 because they find, I presume I haven't had personal contact with them, that 11 is a difficult number to work with. It seems to me that people that are in decision-making processes realize that if you've got problems that need to be solved, difficulties increase exponentially with the number of people involved. Okay, so from my perspective, I think 11 is a bad idea. It was a bad idea, and it was poorly brought forth. I understand the motive for it. I understand that there's a desire to have more public participation, but I'm just saying that the reason that you have to have a petition written into the statutes, the reason you have to have a petition is because the number 11 is an extraordinary number, and it shouldn't be used except under extraordinary circumstances when it comes to needing apportionment. So, I understand it. People think that they've been shut out of the process. I understand that. And there are ways to move forward with this. But I will say that we have an election coming up, okay, in April. There's going to be 3 positions open at that time, okay? 3/7 of the current board is going to be up for elected office. Now, that's something to consider. If I'm concerned that if we move forward with this petition and accept it and move on and say, okay, we're going to have 11 members, this is improper. I mean, anybody in the public could say, look, this school board is acting improperly. So we're in a very difficult position here because it seems like whatever we do, we're at risk of liability. And is that clear to the audience here? Is that, the desired outcome of all of this? Is that what we're trying to do? I doubt it, I think if you're going to put people in a position of liability based on whatever decision they make, there are very few people going to want to sit in this chair and be on this board.
I'm going to recognize Clay.
And I would just like to add to that. I don't really understand the rationale of 11. And what the petition has done to the board is it's painted us into a corner where there's no wins. No matter what we do, we're pretty much screwed, and we're going to end up in court. So, with that being said, if what we're here about is really trying to educate our children rather than make lawyers rich, why not put this off for a year, bring in the petition the way it should be at the next annual meeting, and bring it forward then, have it voted on, up or down, and have it so that there is no question about the legalities of it and getting it on the ballot for the following year. Trying to force this onto the ballot for the next election is only going to guarantee some sort of litigation for us. And all that's going to do is cost this district money and lawyer fees that cannot be spent on other things that are needed.
Can you expand, Clay, a little bit about when you say you have a legal liability with having a special meeting to reconsider this? It sounds to me like it's the special meeting.
Okay, well, now, at the annual meeting, everybody was in agreement that the only vote there could be, an advisory vote. And that a new petition would have to be brought forth. And there was, even at that meeting, there was questions as to how legally that would fit in or not fit in. And I don't know, I haven't had it myself satisfied as to that going forward with this special meeting that it, is going to be okay and we aren't going to have some sort of litigation if we do it. And if we don't do it, we're probably going to get litigation. So please try to convince me why it is so important that this 11-member board has to be on the ballot for this next election and why it can't wait one more year and have it done so that there is no question that anything is in proper order to meet the statutes and the requirements for the special meeting.
That's my personal opinion on it. And that's just my personal. I don't speak for Peter's.
Vicki, here's a concern that I have.
That's okay. No, go ahead, John.
Time out.
You can go.
This guy's been waiting a long time and he has the microphone, so if we could go back to who has the microphone is the one that gets to talk, it would be good.
I'm going to continue with the subject that we got here, and then I'll recognize concern that I've got with the time frame of this second petition. is that the earliest day that we can have that special meeting is the 19th of November. The deadline for a notice for that election is the 24th. However, we have to publish it before that. And the deadline for the newspaper to be able to publish that is the 18th. So we have to have the information the day before that special meeting can take place. So we're... That's a concern that I've got. Right now, I'm going to recognize, I'm struggling to remember his name right now.
Mr. King.
Is this on? Mr. King.
Yes. Where's my brother?
The 19th is a Thursday.
But the paper would be going to, would be the ad the Friday before, so that the paper goes to the publisher on the Tuesday to come out on Thursday.
No, he's talking about the board election notice, aren't you, John? Right,
So it would have to be in by Friday.
So if that special meeting on the 19th votes that, yes, we are going to have 11 members, we needed to notice the advocate that would take place on the 13th.
No, on Friday.
No. Are you talking to meet the Board of Education election posting, or are you talking to meet the special meeting posting?
The election.
Well, that's on a Thursday night. Ads are due to the paper by Friday for the following Wednesday. You would still have time to have the paper.
Yep.
But that's why I was wondering which one you're talking about, so.
Mr. King.
Yes. On the question on the appropriate, it still hasn't been answered. And I do have an explanation of why I personally, not you personally, think that we need to do the 11-member board. First of all, your press release that you issued stated a meeting on November 4th. And that there, because the public had expressed some concerns to some board members over the appropriate plan. You have not stated yet what those concerns were that you had heard. And that there you had notice of 2 weeks almost that you knew the date. I had to ask at the PR meeting, when were you going to post it so we know the time, the date. That to me is trying to control the turnout. Okay. Now, on the 11-member board, the reason I feel we need to go to the 11-member board is so this doesn't happen. And that you have a great amount of people here. Okay. Do you think of the ramifications as anybody up here thinking of the ramifications? You talked about declining in student enrollment and that the divisions you make in the community using the community's tax dollars to pay for lawyers, to get consultation, to obstruct what the people have. And that we're asking for another vote. If you feel you have support, let the vote happen. You got nothing to fear. But I see myself right now looking at a board that is being dictated to because nobody is questioning the motives. You're going to flush more student enrollment down the drain because nobody's questioning it. We need more people to ask questions because this board currently does not ask those questions. I fear that this obstruction that we have right now, if you don't reconsider your actions, it was brought up at the way we handled the harassment claims. There was a conversation with a former member that we could lose student enrollment on this. People are going to make their decisions on how the board handled it. It was no concern to that person. People can make their decisions that they want. What happened? Well, we lost a huge tax drop in that because we had, 190-some students that transferred out, a few that transferred in. This action by this board not standing up to the administration and doing their job is going to flush more people out of this district. Now, if that's what you want, maybe that's what the state wants, maybe that's what we're pushing to. But I'd like to put the question on the table. Have you guys asked, is our administration working with sources outside of legal counsel, outside of your board members, in how to run this district and not listening to the people in this district? These are questions that you as the board has a responsibility for the taxpayers and the parents of the people in this district. My daughter is a sophomore, and I have concerns. These are important years in her education. You guys played to be doing an experiment. Ask some questions of the administration in that there. It was brought forth at the committee meeting in that there that we kind of let things slide through the summer because we had so many open records requests. You have the power, find somebody else to be a custodian of those records and get that stuff out in that there. Turn this thing around. Don't keep following the lead. Ask some questions because that's what an 11-member board would start doing. Thank you.
I guess I'd like to make a couple comments here. You know, one thing, we do care, that's why we're having this meeting, is to hear your public's opinions. And I know that some of you have contacted me outside of the board here, and I appreciate it. And so, but for those of you that have not tried to contact me, I wish you would have. You know, I mean, I am here to listen, and that's I'm elected by constituents, and so I encourage you to do so. Second thing would be, we keep hearing about this legal counsel, that why do we keep getting legal counsel? How many $15 million operations do you know of that does not have a legal counsel that they can talk to?
I guess I have a follow-up question. You said you want 11 board members to question the administration. It seems like you're...
This board's not doing that.
Okay. Am I hearing you that you think an 11-member board...
More representation with an 11-member board.
Is your goal to...
Get representation to the public, because we do not have representation right now. You guys are all in lockstep with each other, and you are led by the administration. You do not ask questions of the administration.
She's had her hand up for quite a while.
I would just like to speak to your point about this board being in lockstep. I certainly can vouch for that this board is not in lockstep. And I think it's unfortunate misconception to think that this board just rubber stamps everything the administration is doing.
When you're done, I would like to ask a question.
The governing by committee or board is difficult at best. It's a necessity that needs to be, but it's never efficient, it's slow, and it's formulated to be that way. So that things aren't arbitrarily changed in a manner without thought and a process. So when you say that we're in lockstep and rubber stamping everything the administration does, I take exception with that.
Okay, I will give you an example of why I think that and why a lot of the public thinks that. If you step back and you take a look at the meetings that we've had, you look on the video, okay, Robert is the only one that's asking questions. Now the response that you guys have is you disdain that because you feel Robert should know the answer to these questions. Robert a lot of times answers these questions or asks these questions because the public out here does not know what you're doing, trying to disclose and draw out what you guys are doing. Now that has the appearance of lockstep in what you're doing when only one person is actually calling board members and the administration out on things. And that there. And especially when that person calls them out and he is chastised, belittled by the board for doing that. And you do that time and time again. Yes, I do think you are lockstep for that reason.
I agree. The board needs to, in the future, do much better at communication. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have a specialist,
The administration needs to do that better also. No doubt about that.
Give you the sting eye, but we have a specialist that is getting paid $50,000 for communication, Clay.
Can you act a little bit more professional than that?
Sure. Sure, I'd love
I'm going
to.
to recognize Betsy.
Okay, thank you. So getting back to the board expansion, I kind of feel like we're getting some mixed messages from you guys. So one thing I've heard is that you don't like the idea. Dr. Gallner, you said that. And then we also heard you, Clay, talk about the legality issue of concern of there possibly being some legal ramifications if we do this, which I'm not clear on who would bring those legal ramifications forward.
Well, any member of the public could say the board acted improperly by allowing a petition to be brought forth
But
without
there's
proper
been some
notice.
other things, haven't there, though, this year that the board can make the decision on, even if it's legal or illegal, you still have the power to determine, to decide, no matter what the handbook or whatever says, you guys have it's all recommended, I mean, you guys have the ability to say yes or no.
No, I don't think I feel I have the capacity to go against what the statutes say.
Okay, so anyway, so let's go on. Let me get back to... Okay, so the other point I wanted to make was you mentioned that the vote was an error because it was an expression from the community, that it didn't have any measuring behind it. But I sat at the meeting and I calculated when they told us the number of votes that voted for the 11 member and against it, I calculated 70% voted for it. So that speaks a lot about what the public that was here wants. That was over 300 people.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It was the large majority of people present in this room voted in favor of it. There's no discussion about that. But nonetheless, if you want to really, sample the public, you want to look at least 900 votes.
Well, I mean, we could analyze the whys to death, but the fact of the matter is that 70% said they wanted it. And so to try to change the minds of 70% of people or convince us otherwise, you still have 70% that were here that night that are going to be very, very upset if action isn't taken because they were told that that it was going to probably go into special meeting and all this other stuff. Then the other thing I just want to mention is that as far as it being poorly brought forth, it was done in a legal fashion. What everybody thought it was legal, what was happening. Even the lawyer thought it was legal until Mr. Murphy brought it up. So everybody was convinced it was legal action that we were taking, that was the power of the people to do. So it was done very well until Mr. Murphy pointed out the fine detail that even the lawyer wasn't even sure of. So to go back and say that it was poorly done is not accurate either. And to say that there could be legal ramifications and so many things that have happened in the board meetings this past year and a half. It's just concerning to me that we would question us to the details that you are after we went through that long hours and hours of it with Mr. Stewart the other night. And I mean, the discussion was to the point of we couldn't discuss it anymore. It seemed like that night of why people gave their opinions and such. So to sit and continue to ask us why and why and why, I mean, I feel like the public has spoken, and you guys can either decide to consider the public's opinion or consider your own opinion, and that's all I have to say.
What would since everybody is interested in hearing what the full electorate would like, and what would your opinion be of putting this on a ballot for a referendum to see how many board members the electorate does want?
Put it on a survey in the Advocate there. They run a survey every week. Costs you nothing.
One of the other just quick thoughts I forgot to mention was that at most of the board meetings, there has not been every single board member present. In fact, there was one a couple months ago, and there were 3 missing. And so it's really disconcerting to the public when we see not everybody here all the time. And granted, people get ill and family members, whatever, but it seems like it was a consistent basis where not everybody was here. And I think that opens the eyes of the public to us to, maybe having more. If you have 11 people and you have one gone, the percentage is different than you have 6 or 7 and 3 gone, or however that numbers are there. Okay, I'm done.
I think if I can chirp in, since I've not had a chance to speak, to suggest that we need 1,000 people or 900 people before a vote could be valid in the eyes of the authorities, so-called, is really disingenuous to the process, I think, because the fact of the matter is most people don't vote in this country. Half the people who are able to register do not register. Half the people that are able-bodied voters don't even bother to vote. It is what it is. Sometimes it's a high turnout, sometimes it's a low turnout. This vote last month was highly publicized by both, by all media outlets that I know of. The people in favor of 11 campaigned, the people against 11 campaigned, and everybody had an opportunity to come forward. Call it a low turnout, call it a medium turnout, but it is what it is. Sometimes it's high and sometimes it's medium and sometimes it's low. But in this country, only voters count.
Yep.
Non-voters don't get people elected. Only voters do. And to suggest that just because you disagree with the outcome, that it's only a small minority of people, and therefore there's no integrity to the vote, is disingenuous at best to the process. The will of the people means a lot to me. When I was serving as the board president last year, we had many people coming to these meetings just like tonight, and they were always pointing fingers. I was one of the people they were pointing at, yelling from their seats. I can mention names, but I won't. And it was very disheartening, and I kept telling the SASD, hey, can't you bring in people that support us? Please, I'm getting tired of this. They never did and never could. It never happened. And I'm beginning to wonder who does support the SASD, because they don't like to come to meetings and they don't like to vote. So, again, it is what it is. In a perfect world, every man, woman, and child would vote. But it's not a perfect world, and we elect candidates all the time with very poor voter turnouts. It happens in Chicago, it happens nationwide. It happens in Spooner.
Yeah.
But those who vote matter. Those who don't bother to vote don't get counted. That's the way the American system works.
That's right.
And I place a great emphasis on what this community has emphasized. It wasn't 51 to 50%. It was almost 75% to 25%, according to my analysis. And that's very overwhelming. And it's certainly something to be taken very seriously. The WASB suggested at that annual meeting that filing a supplemental partition plan would be adequate to have another meeting. And that was the WASB's opinion at the time. We were all here. Now, there's not a lot of impression on that law. It could go either way. And any attorney will tell you, as I understand it, that it's not been decided. There's an argument for a supplemental petition, and there's an argument against it. And no attorney can sit here and tell you what the outcome will be. So there's risk either way to the board if they do something or if they don't do something. I think the risk is equal. So I think that argument doesn't really hold water for me. But to me, the will of the people is important. And if you want my opinion, I think it's a dangerous precedent to fight the people because they're the only people showing up. Tell me where these other people are. I've been begging for it. And they do not want to come. And I can go either way, but if the people want this, then they should have this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, Chad Dixon again. Better?
Nope. Better? Okay. In addressing this, I'm not going to make any friends here and say that I don't agree that going to 11 makes it better. I really don't. I think a 7-person board really will meet the needs of the community when the board successfully discusses and debates and is transparent over their feelings on the issues. I stood before the board last April after 3 different answers that I was given to a question that contradicted each other and stood before each of you and asked who speaks for the board. And I got no responses from anybody. That night, by email, no follow-through from my administrator. Your silence spoke volumes. And that is very concerning to community members. Now being that I am no longer on staff and continue to ask questions as a community member, I have concerns about the way the board is structured, about the way the board has dealt with things. Clay, I couldn't be in more disagreement over the district's decision to worry about litigation. That hasn't stopped you from using your attorneys all year long, to the extent of probably 60% more than we used the previous year.
Yep.
That's concerning. That's very concerning as a community. That we're circling the wagons, we're covering our bases, we're making decisions behind closed doors, and that's the perception to the public I talk to. It may not be the perception to the public you talk to, but it certainly is to the public that comes to me asking questions for the last year and a half, that asks what's going on when I travel outside of this district, to people asking what's going on in our community. There are concerns, and there are legitimate concerns. I do think that going to 11, that vote, and the process that has gone through, the community has been genuine in their request for it. I disagree with it. I think the board can act as it does with the members it does, but there is a concern about lockstep. There is a concern about putting this off yet another year when the damage for this year will already be done by April. And if we wait until next year's annual meeting, that's a 3rd year going in the direction we are going. We can't afford a spiral 3 years long like the last year and a half we've had. There are legitimate concerns that have been voiced. You've recorded the meetings. Go back and watch them. I will go back and post sections of community comments if necessary for you to be able to see. I can send them to you. I'll take the time to edit and just pull out the community comments and concerns that have been brought before the board that haven't been addressed for the last year and a half. That is the community's concern right now.
I want to ask the present company a couple of pointed questions. I've heard a number of reasons put forth to have 11 members on the board, and among them that the board members have to work hard and they need help. Like help going to committee meetings, I need help with the duties of my board position, which sounds nice, I guess, but is it not? Is it the board that is the problem here, or the administration? I understand. Just let me talk for a minute, Vicki. I understand that, there's plenty of discomfort about the decisions that have been made at the administrative level and how they've been made. I don't think there's anybody on the board doesn't know all about that. But it seems to me that this move to go to 11 members of the board is perhaps the underlying method here or goal is to stack the board and create a regime change, right? Get rid of administration, clean house, start over again. Am I wrong about that, or am I right about that? And I want an honest answer in the effort at transparency. Okay, be transparent about this. I don't want to hear from somebody besides Vicki and Chad.
I'm going to recognize Christy Davis.
In all due respect to the board, I have actually a couple of things to say.
Can you use the microphone?
Yep. I'll answer your question first, Mr. Gallner. Dr. Gallner. Oh, it says it is. Is that better? Yes. Great. I'll answer your question first. If the goal was to change the regime or to stack the board, how could we, as a few people, orchestrate such an undertaking? That would be my question to you. I mean, do you truly think that we have the power in the entire community to stack the board?
So is that a no or a yes?
I would say that's a no.
Okay.
We are looking
Good.
for representation. People who will listen, who will return emails. I sent all of you an email last night. I sent another one this morning, actually at lunch, knowing that you may not have been able to check your email. Patiently awaiting your response to 3 questions that I asked, simple questions. The first one was whether or not we would be considered members of the committee tonight. And we appreciate the opportunity to speak, and we appreciate the opportunity to have open dialogue. But the answer is no, we're not. We're not members of the committee. The second one was, did you, as a board, seek legal counsel to provide strategies to avert the petition?
The answer is no.
That's interesting, because I got another answer that said yes.
That is interesting. But
Did you meet with legal counsel? Did you meet with legal counsel to provide you with a pros and cons list of whether or not you should hold the special meeting and follow through with the petition?
Absolutely, we did.
Great, thank you. So that is a yes. And as much as I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, it's not up to you. It's not based on your opinion. The state statute 120.082B says that if a petition is filed, this is not for the annual meeting, there is no deadline for 30 days prior. If a petition is filed by 3% or 100 electorate members, that a special meeting will be held. If you do not hold the meeting, you are not in compliance with the law. So you're worried about legalities and you're worried about litigation, but the truth of the matter is you will be breaking the law if you don't follow through with holding the meeting. Let the people decide. Let it come to a vote.
I'm absolutely all for letting people decide. I spoke to that earlier. There are about 4,000 voting people in this district, okay? About 2,000 vote, okay? If you're going to get a sampling, a true sampling of the number of people in this district, you're going to want to have at least 900 to 1,000 people.
In all due respect, Mr.
voting
Gellner, Mr. Holland already addressed that. 50% of the people in
I
this
find a lot of
community...
fallacy in what he said.
Okay.
Bob and I have had very animated discussions about this. I would say very civil discussions about this. And I would offer this as yet an example of how this board is not in lockstep. We have very animated discussions about these things. And here's just one example that's come up. Bob and I have been doing a lot of give and take on this.
Would you agree that the open meeting or the annual meeting was open to any person interested in coming?
Repeat that.
Would you agree, yes or no, the annual meeting was open to any interested electorate member in participating and coming?
Absolutely.
Then does it go to reason that those that attended the meeting are the ones that are interested and are vested and will be the ones that represent the community?
Well, I will say that in the past couple of weeks, I have spoken with a number of people, trade people in the community, people that don't come to board meetings, people that whose kids have grown and gone or are just about there. And, you know, this is anecdotal sampling, but 11 members, universally, everybody thought that's a bad idea. You know, I think that the people that are here are people that are highly motivated, highly invested, and highly involved. And I thank you for that. I mean, it used to be, I'd be at board meetings, there'd be 2 people there, or 1, or none from the community. And we'd sit and do business, and it was like this. Nobody in the community gives a darn about this. So I welcome this. It's great to have this feedback. It's been healthy for us. But I know there are a number of people that didn't come to that meeting. And they may or may not have agreed with the outcome of that vote. So, and I don't want to belabor this anymore, okay? It's just, Bob and I have a difference of opinion on this. He calls me disingenuous at best. I guess he can call me those names if he wants.
So we'll agree to disagree on our take of the people that came. In response to changing the regime, even if there was an 11-member board, there is no power that is taken until the election in April. The 11-member board cannot do anything in changing administration. Not this year. That's all up to you.
So you're telling me that the motive here is not that, not to...
I will stand as a member of this community and tell you, would I like to see the administration change? Yes, I would.
No. Okay. Well, that's good.
But does that mean that an 11-member board would move in that direction? There is no control over who the 11 members are. That's left up to the voters, as it should be. The voters get to speak. The voters get to decide. Much like each of you were elected, that's their choice. And the petition is only to put it on the ballot. If it passes, the petition is to put it on the ballot to expand and fill the seats. If it passes in the community. And again, I would like to remind you, it's a state statute. The petition was filed legally, whether you agree with the apportionment plan, whether you agree with expanding it, whether you think it was the best option for this district, is irrelevant. It is a legal right for the people to have it noticed and to hold the special meeting.
Nobody, I guess, I would still like to hear why it is so expedient to have the 11-member board on the election for this coming April, rather than slowing it down, making sure that it's done correctly, and that there will be no possibility of litigation from either side. That's what I'm looking at, is why can't we do it, slow it down, do it so that there is going to be no possibility of litigation, no matter what the outcome is.
Vicki, I didn't mean anything personal, you know.
That's okay. People try to shut me up all the time.
Okay.
I want to speak to Clay and Paul, and I'll be perfectly honest. I don't speak for views. I was neutral at best for an 11-member board. I favored a recall. I feel 11 members.
Could I speak to that? Me too. I'm in favor of a recall. Can I be the first one recalled?
Sure. I feel 11 members. It's hard to get 7 people to run for a school board.
We had 2 last election. We had 2 seats open, 2 people ran, a couple of late write-ins. I'm looking ahead, you got 11 people. Okay, this is
I know that, Paul.
Let me tell you, this isn't as much fun as it looks.
It's a thankless job. I've seen it for years. People don't show up because they're happy. People show up because they're unhappy. Except for Joyce Rubish. She just showed up all the time.
Yay, Joyce!
I'll be honest with you, because my point of view may not be popular. But I favor an immediate 11-member board because, number one, the recall was voted down by the committee that I'm part of, FUSE. I feel we can't wait. I feel this should have happened 5 months ago. I don't think this district can take more of what's happening. Is the problem the board or the administration? Personally, I don't hold anything against it. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you there. I did hold it against Randy because he was a jerk. But I don't hold anything against any of you. I feel the problem is administration. We did a bad job. We got a bad superintendent. And the leadership that this board is following to do with that I think is the problem. I don't think you hear the truth. I don't think you hear the complete truth. I think many things are glossed over to what you folks hear, that what you get to make a decision on. It's not that you're making bad decisions based on the information that you're given, but you're making a decision based on the information that you're given. I don't think you're given the truth. I don't think you're given the whole picture. So I support an 11 board in this instance so that we can make a change, so that we get more people that are just not, who ask the questions. It's hard to even know what to ask. I know that. And when you said, are we trying to turn over staff, turn over administration? I see how you treat Bob Holen. I see how the superintendent treats Bob Holen publicly for speaking against her or a differing of opinion. I feel that unless we get enough people on the board that have a difference of opinion, that may carry a popular vote different than yours, that you will not take them seriously. You will ignore them like you ignore Bob. Publicly. I don't know what you do in committee meetings because we don't see that. So that's my honest truth, is I want 11 because I think you guys need to listen to more people. I think unless there's a chance that what you want won't pass, that you don't feel the need to compromise. I don't think you feel the need to listen to everybody. And let's face it, if we get some more people, everybody's ideas are good. Do I favor an 11-member board? Wow. We're going to be lucky to get 11 members. That's hard to do. But that's the truth, and that's my honest truth.
So can I just ask one question to Vicki? How come, why was 9 or 11 board members decided on versus 9? Because my thought is that would have been a vast majority of the board if turnover. If it went to 9, and I think it would have been a whole lot easier, and I don't think you would have met any resistance.
I have to tell you, I was neutral at best. I wouldn't take a lead on this in their FUSE committee because I was neutral at best on it. Until it became closer to the actual annual meeting, I didn't make my personal choice. I would have followed it because I joined a committee, and that's the way our committee was going with the FUSE. But I can't answer that question for you, Kyle, because I didn't take a lead on it, because I was neutral at best when the idea was brought forth. So, but in my opinion, I supported it so that there was enough members that maybe differed from your opinion to be taken seriously. 9, 2 more people. Well, as it turns out, it could have been 3 more people. You're getting closer to half the board. They probably would have had more of a vote, but I'd like to see Bob Holen stay on the board. I think he's doing the best job that he can, being the odd man out. And I thank you for being open and honest, all of you, even when you're saying things I don't want to hear. So, because I'm saying things you don't want to hear either. So I can't speak to it, so Kyle, on that.
So, Vicki, if I'm hearing what you're saying right about the 11, with 3 positions open in the upcoming election, the regardless. I mean, that can change the dynamics of the board greatly. So, I mean, if this is slowed down and brought back at the next annual meeting for 11, if the will of the people is to change the dynamic of the board, they're certainly going to have that already in the April election by electing 3 new members.
Well, potentially. But
Well,
now you're
but it's
looking at-
potentially with 11 too. I mean, everything is potential because you don't know who's going to get voted on or in.
Actually, until Randy resigned from the board, that all was null and void, because at best we were looking to get probably 2 people on the board. One guy's an odd man out. I don't think 2 was going to make a difference. And at that point, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And we were really under a tight deadline to get that second petition filed. As you know, we did it right out here, for the most part, after to change strategies. Was not something we were under a timeline to even consider. 9, if that's what was brought forth, I would vote for that.
But if it
that's
would,
not what was brought
and
forth.
my understanding, my limited understanding of all this is if it would have been 9, there wouldn't have been the need for the apportionment portion, and it could have been voted on at the annual meeting. That was my understanding of
Sure, but you got sold on 11, so.
but, so,
So right now you have, okay, you don't have to agree with this. You have 6 against 1. Well, they had 6 against 1 when this plan was put together. You don't have to agree with that statement. That's my perception, okay? That is my personal perception. 6 against 1.
I'll go on the record and say I disagree with that statement.
I absolutely disagree with that
I
statement.
disagree.
I hope you all do.
So, this is an interesting discussion to me because I'm thinking, I read in the paper that the mission of the Fuse Group was to offer more help, that we needed more people in there to help with work burdens.
Doesn't matter
It
what
seems to me that was a bunch of platitudes that was obscuring the real motive here.
Oh, come on.
We thought we could get, we needed 11 because we would need that, et cetera. You're talking about a sort of a political agenda here rather than advancing the workload of the board. So, yeah, I don't want to go too far on that, but it's sort of amusing
That's
to
what
me.
you asked us to be transparent on, so that's what I spoke to.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Vicki.
And I don't speak for Fuse on that.
Yeah, I'm clear on that, so
because they
thank
don't
you.
agree with me.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to recognize Christina and then Kevin.
Vicki, I appreciate your personal insights on that. It's good to hear. And I know you mentioned committee meetings, and just to let everybody know that those committee meetings are open to everybody, so I don't want people to think they can't come to those.
I'm sorry, I meant closed meetings, not committee meetings, because those are open.
Okay. Another thing is, just to put I'm sure you guys have thought of this already, but what if the whole admin team would resign if there was an increase in board size? That is something that we would also have to consider, and what happens then.
Why would they?
Why would they?
Because they may have 11 new bosses.
Have they told you that? Have they expressed that?
That's it right there.
No,
That's it.
but they may, if that happens.
That's it.
So, but these are things that we as a board need to all consider looking at these things. And I'm just stating what I feel and what I think about these decisions.
Say thank you.
Another thing I'd like to just say about, and I don't want to get into an argument, is that I have spent 3 years being ignored by Bob Holen on stage. He will not communicate with me, and he can be very hostile in emails to me, and I'm going to say that publicly because that is what happens, and he can be very rude.
Excuse me, I don't even send you emails. You and I don't talk, which is fine. We're civil. We don't talk. Okay? I asked you for a meeting last year when I was the board president, if you're going to use my name and defame me, I asked for a meeting with you because we weren't getting along. And when we sat down, you wouldn't even look at me. I asked you for your help. And you said, wouldn't it be great if the community saw us both working together? You couldn't wait to get out of the room. You rejected my offer to work with you. And I haven't had anything to do with you ever since. I'm sorry.
Why is Michelle Schwab laughing at this discussion right now? I don't find it funny, Michelle. Well, because she's laughing and she's our superintendent.
We need to have this in order.
I'm sorry.
Well, then get it in order.
That opened you guys up to this.
I'm just telling you what my perception is.
Back to the agenda. Mr. Kronk is...
He's had his hand up for like...
I just have a quick comment. I'll say it without a microphone. Just going back to, whether it's Fuse or whether it's 9 or whether it's 11. When you have a typical board meeting, you typically, in years past, I'm guessing you have Joyce Bubish or one or two other people. This last year, you've had many more people coming. 2 years ago at the annual meeting, I think it was around 20 people. Last year at the annual meeting, you had about 50. This year, my God, you had over 500. I think regardless if it's 9 or it's 11 or if it's whatever the agenda of Fuse is, you had over 500 people here vote on something, and you had an overwhelming majority say this is the direction we want to go. We, the people, want to go this way. So although I do respect your opinions, we have stated, we the people, this is what we want. And that, I believe, needs to move forward, regardless.
Yeah, Jeff Pierce. Just one thing I want to mention. You see the discourse, you had 4 more people up here. There's a reason why there's only one, I think in the whole state of Wisconsin that has 11 people on board. It's a mess. It's a mistake. I'm probably not part of your group, obviously, but I've been on town board of Trigo. I was town chairman of Trigo. I was on the side board of Trigo. I understand their difficulty. It's not an easy job. I've been there, done that. I just have saw how it works out here, and my thought would be just take a step. Rush into this, it could be a mistake, because you're going to see what discourse you have. 11 people up here with all different ideas. What is going to get done? I would rather see it, just give yourself a little bit of time, vote the 9 in, and you've got 3 more people coming up for election. You can still have your majority. If that's what you people feel about it, you can still get what you want without going through all this hassle of 2 more people. To me, it does not make sense. That's just my thoughts on that.
I can't do that.
Is 9 a possibility?
No. 9 is a possibility if you bring a new petition for next year. Wait till next year.
We want something now.
Then run some candidates for the April election. There's going to be 3 seats available.
At least.
Next, I'd like to recognize Bill Skidmore.
Yeah, this is Bill Skidmore. To answer Dr. Delmer's question, I'm only talking for myself. It is the administration. I've had children in the school district since 1990. Okay? I've gone to 1 board meeting before this year. I've gone to every board meeting I could possibly make since then. The problem I see is what's happening in our school district this year. We've lost half of our staff this year. We have had 192 children open enroll out of this school district this year. By my figures, that's about $1.275 million out of our school district this year. We had 36 open enroll in this year. That's still $1 million revenue shortfall. Does anybody think that the education in our school district is better now than it was 1 year ago?
No way.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I do think that there are aspects of our system today that are better than they were 1 year ago. Loss in staff, definitely not. The turmoil that this has caused, no. But there are some things that have been implemented that have been good. And our lack of ability to recognize and communicate the good and the bad has brought it to this. And I think that this is a desperate attempt to change a bad situation. But it doesn't mean it's a good choice. We have the opportunity now. Forget about what is going to happen or what could have, what would have. There will be an opportunity to elect 3 new people in April. Nothing will be changed between now and then, except for the people up here. These are the ones that will change, if anything is going to change until then. So I see the wisdom in taking a step back and saying this is a change that we will make for a number of years to come. And it could cause more chaos. And that is the last thing that we need as a district. I can say I don't agree with what's gone on as a whole for our district. There are things that have been good, and there are things that have been terrible. But the lack of the board and the administration to admit and acknowledge the terrible things, as well as the problem with all of us lacking to acknowledge the good things, that's the issue. And there is no way that we can move forward as a community for my children if we don't do that. This is desperate, and I don't think we can continue in this way.
I agree. Not everything is bad. I absolutely agree. I think our teachers do a wonderful job. I think they're working very hard to try and make this work. But they're under some stress. And I know that because my children now are in the Cumberland school. And I asked them, would you rather be in Cumberland than Spooner? And they said, quite frankly, no. Our friends are in Spooner. The school in Spooner is nicer. And I said, well, is there anything in Cumberland better than what it was in Spooner? And they said, yeah. The teachers here are happy. The teachers here laugh. They have a good time in school. The kids here are happy. They like the education they're getting. That's nothing against the teachers. I'm not against the teachers whatsoever. What I'm against is the fact that we've had half of our teachers leave. You lose half your teachers, you got to say somewhere something's not right. What's changed in the last year? Our superintendent, our administration.
And I agree.
Do I
if
think
that's
that,
the problem,
do I,
I'm just going to speak just to the increase in board members. That's not going to make a difference. This board, and I'm going to speak openly and honestly because, and I'm very sorry if I hurt anyone's feelings, but you have to decide by January to non-renew our superintendent's contract, and it is your decision. And you know full well by the majority of the people here that they don't want her to remain, that there is too much damage being done. And Michelle, you want, and this may be out of step, but I think it's time it's done. You are a wonderful person in some ways. I've had great interaction with you, but if you can't mend this community, you can't stay. We cannot move forward if you can't do this as a whole. And I'm talking about the board and the community together. And that's your decision. You have to make that decision. We can't. And change the number on the board will not. If you can prove that there's a way to do it with you in place, I'll listen. But if not, you have to make a very challenging decision. And we have to move forward as a community together. And ultimately, that's the problem here. Whatever we use as a guise for board members and the numbers doesn't matter, because that's the issue.
Amen, sister. Basically, to answer the second part of that question, okay, I can only speak for myself. Am I for an 11-member board? Only because I do not believe you are doing your job. I do not believe that you have the best interests of the school at heart. That's it in a nutshell. And we have to do something, because what happens if we lose another 200 kids next year? We have open enrollment coming up in February. And I am really in fear. My kids are gone. Okay? My kids will not be back in the Spooner School District. Not because things can't turn around and might get better, but because my son, who's a sophomore, will have to sit out 1 year of athletic eligibility if he transfers back into Spooner. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I don't want to drive 100 miles a day to bring my kids to and from Cumberland. But I had to do what was best for my kids. Because my kids only have one chance to go through high school. And I'm not about to take my kids and put them in an experiment to see what happens if we change half the teachers in the administration, get rid of all of our coaches, and see what happens 4 years from now. So, am I for an 11-member board? Only because I feel that is the only option we have to get this school district back in step. I don't feel it's working. It's broke. Please, prove me wrong. Do something. Do something constructive and do something right. You know what's going on. I know you guys. You're not stupid. Neither are we. Just do what needs to be done.
I just want to follow up with you guys are discussing the open enrollment, and actually I worked with somebody in the audience with this a few years ago. It was 2013. I had an open enrollment committee, and I actually reached out to every family that was open enrolling out and contacted them and figured out where they lived, and had personal conversations with each of them of why they open enrolled. And I have that information available if anybody would like to see it. And actually it's on a map pinpointed where all of them are at and their choices why. So I would like to put that out there to everybody that we did do that effort. We did have a committee. Nate Eichhorst and Bob Holman were on that committee with me. That information is there. So please, I welcome you to come talk to us. We can pull that data, pull that information. I can't give you, I don't think I can give you the kids' names because that would be confidential information, but I can show you why and who they are. Secondly, on Monday night, there were 3 meetings. There was a personnel, there was a budget, and there was a buildings and grounds, and those were very good meetings this week. There was talk about referendum and figuring out, what we need to work on for that, whether it be operating, capital, what the school's allowed to do, and part of that, what our part can be in those things, what we need to do those things. Those were very good discussions. We also talked about the strategic plan, and we viewed a couple strategic plans from different school districts, and how do we want to move forward in that, and I know we've been waiting for those things, and yes, the board should have worked on them sooner. The board is working on them now. Clay was chairing that committee that evening, and he has given us direction, and we are moving forward with working on that. And just on a personal note, what it's like. I have 2 kids in the school. I care deeply. I had excellent conferences on Thursday night. I had a very emotional conference with a teacher about what she's teaching our kids about citizenship and understanding the total aspect of our kids when they're doing the food pantry project. And that project is not all kids can give, and that some kids are there, they see that food, and they're the ones that actually receive it. And it breaks my heart because we need to teach our kids that they don't always have to give by monetary, and we have to show them there's other ways, whether it's volunteering and understanding that whole aspect. It was a beautiful conversation, and I had to stop her midstream, and I thanked her because I've been waiting for those conversations with my kid, because that's what's important to me, is raise a good citizen. So that is important. I am dealing with other issues in the high school with my son. I had great conversations with those teachers. And I can't, some of you know my personal reasons for why I'm on the board. I don't want to go into them, but some of you know. And those are, the staff is doing a great job of helping me work through those reasons. So I do know, and to say I don't care, that's awful. Because I have a lot of compassion and empathy, and I cry myself to sleep at night because of this.
I appreciate that there are different opinions here that people have expressed, and they all feel strongly about what they're saying. Each of you on the board has the same right that we do to vote for or against an 11-member board. You have an additional responsibility to honor the petition that was legally filed and call the special meeting and let the electorate, and it can be 200, 400, 900, 1,100, 2,000. Whoever shows up to vote has the chance to express their opinion. Your job before that is to set the special meeting.
Do you mind if I make a comment about the open seat? Is that okay?
That's okay.
You know, after listening to these people, whatever you guys do, somebody's going to be mad at you. The last board meeting we had, I believe 4 people ran. 2 people got elected. Whoever was the 3rd place person, I would like to see whoever that person was to be let in on the board. That way, it's above board, people have voted, it's over and done with. You guys have a special meeting. I think we got more important things to work on this school board. Be over with it. You seat one more person, we're ready to roll. Thank you.
I just want to speak to why I personally want the 11-member board. I've been at the committee meetings, and I know now, when I first started going to them, the public could go and they could speak. Now, the public kind of just sit there and don't really have a say in anything. Once in a while, the public says something or someone can say anything. But I would like to see discussion. At these regular board meetings, I don't see a lot of discussion from the board members. I see our superintendent making a recommendation and then it being voted on. I don't hear even what the recommendation is because many times it's just what she's written or what's in your packet. It's not even said what is being recommended. I mean, for the record, for the minutes, sometimes you have to go back and read things in the minutes that aren't even said at the meetings. I appreciate Bob for saying things like, what was that recommendation? So we know what you guys are voting on. Because I want to know. I have a question for Jen. What was the last recommendation our superintendent gave at a regular board meeting that you voted no for?
You're looking at me and calling me Jeff, but I assume
I'm looking at John. John, what was the last issue item that you voted no on to Michelle's recommendation at a regular meeting? And let me know, because I'd like to go back and reference that meeting. What? It's okay for back there to holler out from your seat, but no one else can. But I'd like to know.
All the time, Julie. Shut up. You do all the time.
I mean, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine, Tracy.
Order, please.
I just would like to know, when was the last time?
I'm not ready to discuss that.
Because I don't feel you have...
That's not part of this agenda.
Yes, it is. Because I don't feel that you are discussing things at the board meetings. That's why I want 11 on this board, to discuss things at the meetings, to not just vote with what the recommendation is, That's my point. I want more people on the board that will say, have some discussion about what you're voting on. The personal recommendations. You guys are voting to accept teachers that aren't even licensed.
No, we're
Because
not.
nobody's looking into it.
All of our teachers are licensed.
That's not true. I have a list. I have a list of teachers that do not have the proper licensures. Because recommendations are being made. Your information you're getting is not always the whole truth. Paul, you may have spoken to people, but if you limit who you're speaking to, of course you're going to get a certain response. When the board voted to change the handbook, and the superintendent stated that the staff appreciated the changes. I have not found one staff member, and I've been looking for someone that appreciated losing some of the benefits that they've lost. When you talk about caring about this school and caring about the teachers, you have to care about their benefits, and your care reflects in your votes. I just want to know when anybody has voted against a recommendation.
I've got a question for you. How would 11 board members make your child's education any better?
I feel that an 11-member
Her
board,
child is in the Catholic school.
and I promised my son that by the time he gets to high school, this board will hopefully be changed and make better decisions. My son is in the Catholic school. And several teachers have pulled their kids out of this school and sent them to the Catholic school.
So can you answer my question? How would 11 board members make your child or any other child in this district's education better?
I feel an 11-member board would have the time and the resources to help make better decisions and find better information.
Thank you.
By the way, I was at Denelli's last night and I had about 5 people thank me for what I'm doing, for being
Is
proactive.
there anybody else that would like to talk now?
So John's whole story about being at Economart, I feel the same thing on the other side.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second that motion.
What about setting up another meeting?
What is,
How about
what
setting
is
up
the
that?
suggestion?
We need a roll call vote to go to closed session.
What are you going to decide tonight? You're going to decide yes or no to this meeting, or are you just going to go into closed session and then adjourn from there? These people have the right to know. What are you going to do? You could say I'm throwing you under the bus, but you threw me under the bus all year last year when you refused to give me any support, and then told me as president that I was not allowed to speak for myself.
I don't understand. But anyways, what we're going into closed session here is to talk about our next steps.
But then are you going to come out and advise these people what your next steps are, or are you just going to adjourn from there?
We'll wait for a decision.
As far as I read the agenda, then immediately after conclusion of the closed session, we will be adjourned. And notice will be given on our decision.
All right, so we need a roll call vote to go into closed session.
So is there going to be action at this closed session? It is a committee meeting, so there really can't be action, Clay, or
The board will give direction to the clerk. The clerk is the one responsible for the next steps in the process. The board will give the clerk a consensus of what the board wants to see happen.
but the committee needs to...
Your own notice says discussion and action will be in the public portion of the meeting, not in a closed session. So you would be in violation of your own notice if you gave a recommendation in closed session, because that's an action. That's why you need to do it publicly, right here, publicly, right here.
It's just a consensus, Bob.
Action.
The clerk has the authority to respond and for the next process. The board is we're going to convene in closed session, discuss what legal ramifications there may be, whatever way we decide, and give our consensus to the clerk to follow up on.
That seems like an action.
That's an action.
Isn't it even to adjourn an action?
You can adjourn.
Violation of your own notice, and I am not going to agree to a closed session. Thank you, that's my vote.
You can adjourn from closed session. You do not have to be out of closed session to review.
So when can we expect that notice from the clerk then regarding if you want to proceed into a closed session? When do we get to hear something?
Well, we've had considerable discussion about that. Our goal is not to drag our feet. Okay, our goal is not to sort of let the clock run out. We realize that that's one option. None of us thinks that's a very good option. So, timing here would be tonight, in my mind, tomorrow at the latest. I mean, we're not going to play, any games with this.
As a committee of the whole, do you not have to go back into a meeting of the board before anything can be done?
This is a meeting of the board.
That's not what it was noticed as. It was noticed as a committee meeting, which is very different.
Still a meeting.
Yes, but legally, according to parliamentary procedure, it is very different. And the only action that can be taken in the committee of the whole is to rise and accept, meaning that you will make your recommendation to the board chair, which according to parliamentary procedure should not have been you, Mr. Headland. You should have given the chair to someone else for a committee of the whole, according to Robert's rules, parliamentary procedure, of which this board follows. And then the committee is to rise and report, and the committee chairperson is to make the recommendation to the board. Article 9:55 in Robert's Rules of Order.
But, Christine, correct me if I'm wrong. Christina doesn't need a board recommendation.
Correct.
She does not need a board director or to, she can walk out the door tonight and decide what she's going to do with this. So
correct.
It's okay that a committee gives a recommendation to her because just like we've been told, it's strictly advisory. She doesn't have to listen to anything.
That is correct, Vicki. I would not have to listen to the board, and I did not want to.
So it doesn't matter that you're making a recommendation in my eyes because you're just helping Christina work through these issues. So I don't see an issue with it, but I just don't understand why you're doing it in closed session. I think the open dialogue that was here tonight was great. You guys were honest and open. We were, and I hope to keep it on just an unpersonal level. But I like that, you guys. That's great. I want to hear what you think, you personally. So
The reason that we need to go into closed session is to discuss with our attorney what, if any, legal ramifications there may be by whatever decision it is that we make.
What was
Because-
the last closed session?
Because the last closed session was preliminary. Now we've heard all your input, and we're going to go in and discuss it and see what decisions, who board members who've changed their minds, and continue the discussion as to what legal ramifications there are for whatever decision we want to make, or whichever way we go. Because I'm pretty sure no matter what we do, we're pretty much screwed.
However, if you make one choice to not have the special meeting, to not notice it, you're going against the law. That is the largest legal ramification facing you. Unless you're challenging the statute.
I'm sure that we'll get highly remunerated advice about that.
Who will?
I also want to remind the board that
Leslie, would you please call a roll call vote for closed session?
Paul Delmer?
Yes.
Brian Overson?
Yes.
John Hedlund?
Yes.
Robert Boland?
No.
Christina Martin?
Yes.
Kyle Hughes?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.